I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they first start their business, the bookkeeping and accounting is really in the backseat. Yeah. They want to worry about that later.
Very secondary.
Exactly.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here, wherever you are. And today it's going to be a really fun conversation. We're going to be talking about accounting, and it's a fun topic. First of all, I'd like to welcome my guest, Matthew Lipman. How's it going, Matt?
Thanks, Axel. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing very well, very well. So just want to set the tone a little bit. This is the first of a two-part series. Offline, when we were talking about the podcast with Matt, we decided that there is actually so much to talk about that we're going to do 2 episodes. This is the first one, so stay tuned for next week or the week after, and you will get the second part. So before we jump into it, I just want to remind everyone, share this episode with a friend who could benefit from this conversation. You're a real estate investor, you have friends who are investing in well, they could learn something, especially today when it comes to the accounting. It's a tedious process for a lot of people, and Matt's going to have some golden nuggets for all of us about things to think about that we don't necessarily do because he's a professional. So Matt, first of all, before we go into the accounting and the real estate and all that, like, how did you get started in accounting?
Thanks, Axel. Yeah, so I think 2 episodes may not be enough to cover everything that there is to cover.
That's true.
But yeah, I got started in accounting, I think 9 years ago. I finished my bachelor degree at Concordia University, and then I started my career at Deloitte, where I worked. I kind of made my rounds through the different departments. I did corporate tax, international tax, and some audit. And yeah, I focused on a variety of different companies, mainly in the public sector.
Okay. After
that, I went out and I decided that I kind of wanted to service a different type of market and have a smaller firm vibe. The big firm wasn't really for me. So I joined a firm that was focused in real estate, a smaller firm that was focused in real estate.
Okay.
And yeah, I worked with them for 5 years and only recently left and started my own firm called MogulCPA.
Oh, right. Okay. So before we get to MogulCPA, which is going to be one of the highlights, there's a lot to unpack. So
sure.
You're born and educated here in Montreal. We both went to Concordia. Oh, cool. And so you started at the Big Four. I can relate. My wife started also in tax at a Big Four. And kind of describe what your experience is like, because those companies are known to grind you, and yet it's a great training ground.
Yeah, I mean, there was things that I loved about the Big Four. Honestly, I think that working with a lot of young people, that was super awesome. I made a lot of great friends working at that company, and also working with some of the best in the industry. Because at the end of the day, these guys that do make it to partner are extremely specialized, but they're not. They're very specialized. Yeah. So they tend to specialize in a very particular area of the law, even sometimes one section of the law or one section of the accounting booklet, the accounting guide for practitioners, which that's what I wasn't attracted to, right? I really didn't see myself wanting to specialize in just one small section of the law. I found that a little bit dull. I wanted to be more of a generalist and able to provide smaller clients, meaningful advice.
Oh, for sure. And some of those guys, as you said, some of those partners, they're so focused, they're really just an inch wide, but a mile deep. And that's what makes them like the king of that topic. That's why they get paid the big bucks. But you're right that in terms of the diversity of the files that you may see or get, the type of work that gets done, either it gets a little repetitive or it gets a little boring after a while.
Totally. When there's a bigger issue that spans many different sections of the law, which most of the big issues do, you have to bring in all of these different people to the table and have this large discussion, which and a lot of the times I find is completely unnecessary and too much red tape.
And so after after a little while over there, then you said you went to a more specialized firm in real estate.
Hmm.
What was that like?
So that was a really great experience for me because it was a smaller firm, so I was able to really grow in my career. I learned so much about real estate. I learned, I worked with everybody from real estate developers to investors to property managers. Did a lot of nursing home related projects, and I was able to actually build out a new product at that firm, which I called virtual CFO services,
Okay.
which is a very trending term in the industry right now. So what virtual CFO services meant for us was that instead of a real estate developer or property manager having their own accountant in-house, their
Hmm.
own controller / bookkeeper in-house, my firm takes over all of the accounting cycle. So everything from accounts payable to accounts receivable, reconciliations, payroll, all of the reporting to partners and banks, all of that is managed through us, which takes a lot of responsibility and pain off of our clients' chests.
Yes, it does. I can just imagine
Mhm.
how much of a relief it is to
Yeah.
be able to do that. It's a great it's a great idea. You said now it's becoming a very trendy term. Like how long ago is it that trend started where companies or smaller companies wanted to outsource that part of their operation?
Well, when I first started developing the product, which was roughly 5 years ago, I know that there was some firms out there that were
Hmm.
offering it. But the thing is that the term virtual CFO services can mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
Sometimes a virtual CFO or fractional CFO will come in and do more analysis type work, look at your business on from a bird's eye view
Okay.
and try and identify areas where you could actually optimize your business,
Hmm.
right? Which is not what we do. We really focus on the accounting cycle and making sure that the numbers are accurate and that all of the reportings are good for the government.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so this is where, when you were working for that real estate firm, you had the idea for those services. Was it
Yes.
because other developers wanted some help from you, or how did that come about?
Well, actually, it's an interesting question because the way it came about was that one of our clients was undergoing a very serious audit,
Oh.
and the government was asking for all sorts of different transaction records from 3 or 4 years in the past.
Hmm.
And we were kind of the intermediary between the auditor and the client, and a lot of the times what the client was providing to me to submit to the auditor made no sense.
Uh oh.
Yeah, so it was quite difficult to kind of rework or reframe whatever the client gave to me
Yeah.
and provide it to the auditor to make it make sense. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, that specific audit did result in a large assessment for that client.
Okay.
And I think people think of accountants as the guy that you go to when you need to have your taxes done at the end of the year. But really, what a really good accountant does is prepare all of the numbers that go into your tax return.
Hmm.
That's where the magic
Yeah.
happens. All the numbers that go into the tax
Mhm.
return. Otherwise, you're just preparing a
Yeah.
form.
The filing is the last 20%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw, how much pain that client was having in that
Mhm.
specific area of bookkeeping, counting. And that's where I got the idea to really start this virtual service, this virtual CFO service.
And did you feel like you've worked after that point a lot with real estate clients?
Hmm.
Do you feel like the real estate industry, developers, investors in particular, needed that service because they were badly set up, or what? Why did you focus on that industry segment in particular?
Another great question. I mean, I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they first start their business, the bookkeeping and accounting is really in the backseat.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to worry about that
It's
later.
very secondary.
Exactly. They want to worry about that later, which is not something I particularly recommend, but that's generally the way it works. And then finally, when, the government starts sending them notices that maybe they need to file their income tax return or whatever the case may be, they kind of scramble together to put together some type of financial statement that they could submit to the government.
Yeah.
And then once they kind of outgrow that stage, they may hire or, bring on their brother or their sister to kind of manage the books, even though they may have absolutely no experience and no competency in accounting.
Yeah.
And, a lot of entrepreneurs, I think that that's the path they take, and they manage to grow over, 5 or 10 years. And this person, maybe their sister, their brother, whoever it is, becomes an essential part of their team. Like, they're taking care of all the accounting, but they don't know really what they're doing,
Yeah.
So I don't think it's really a specific thing to real estate. I think all entrepreneurs kind of have this pain.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that I got into real estate was because I want to be able to deliver a product that is premium for my clients. So in doing these virtual CFO services, I design all these standard operating procedures, and I really design them to accommodate the real estate industry.
Mm-hmm.
And, the accounting, whether you think so or not, is different depending on which industry you're in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, for example, 13th billing or CAMS recovery, right? Like your triple net billing at the end of the year when you're trying to recover all of your property expenses, your repairs and maintenance, and your insurance from the tenant. That's quite a tedious process to go through, and you want to make sure that you're picking up all of the expenses that are recoverable from the tenant. And not only that, you want to make sure you're getting it done like January 1st, so you want to get paid as soon as possible. So just, small qualms like that is why I decided to specialize in real estate, so I could really offer real estate developers, property managers a premium product.
Yeah. And it really makes sense, because then you get, as you work with different types of clients all within the same industry, you build an expertise of, hey, on this file, we did it this way. He had that question. That's how we ended up implementing it. And then that's transferable to everything else that you work on afterwards. So
absolutely,
there's a huge value in really working with a professional that is a little narrower in his industry type and clients, because then you really benefit from his expertise from all the mistakes of all the other clients.
I 100% agree. And even, financing, refinancing, I just by doing the books, like I have a very good understanding of what a good deal is and what isn't a good deal. So, and that's something that I'm happy to have discussions with my clients about.
Yeah. So then you launched CPA Mogul. MogulCPA, right?
MogulCPA.
MogulCPA.
Yes.
How long ago was that, and what was it like?
So I launched MogulCPA January this year. So we're still quite young, and it's been great. Honestly, I've found that, as I think a lot of entrepreneurs find in their journey, that sometimes partnerships are quite difficult, and I'm so excited to be able to take complete ownership of my team, complete ownership of my product, and complete ownership of all the relationships that I'm building with my clients, and to offer them this premium service that we're looking to bring to the market.
Okay, so then it's virtual or fractional CFO for real estate investors, developers. Like who are you targeting right now? Because some of the people who are listening to this might actually be like your prime audience. So how should they be taking this?
Listen, I mean, like with real estate, I think that the term developer, property manager, investor, like they're all mixed up or mêlé, sometimes. And we really just are looking to work with anybody that's a serious player in real estate. We still service, kind of smaller real estate investors with maybe a sixplex or whatever the case may be. But really our target market is that we're looking to work with people that are dedicated full-time to real estate, or that at least have a serious interest in building a real estate business.
Yeah. And a serious interest in building a real estate business. Like I find it fascinating how some companies overlook and say, oh no, like as a client, I don't want to take you on because you're too small. But we start small before we get big.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't we just grow together? And I've had actually people say, yeah, you know what? Like in terms of financing, your projects are a little smaller than what we like to work with, but I can tell that you're going to grow bigger and I want to work with you. And to me, when this gentleman said that, it was actually a real invitation to, oh, wow, you know what? I'm going to stick with you for a while. And so there's huge value in building those relationships and growing together. Because before we get big, we all start small. That's just the fact of life.
Totally. I think it's super important to also pick an accountant that is somebody that can scale with you, right? I think a lot of accountants, it's an aging demographic.
Definitely.
Yeah. There isn't so many young people coming into the profession, which is a bit unfortunate, but I think that a lot of the older accountants will just be there to really prepare your tax return, right? Just take the numbers that the bookkeeper is providing and put them into the tax return, and then they'll send you the pages to sign without even having any type of discussion about what's going on with your tax situation, right? Which I find that to be quite unfortunate, actually.
Yeah, because there's actually a little bit of leeway. It's something I learned from my wife in tax, is that there's some expenses in real estate that could be in both categories, operational or capital. And so depending on what it is and where is it that it's going to benefit you the most, depending on your situation and also on some of the years. Some years you want to have more expenses, some years you want to have less. So it's important to work with a professional who's going to take the time to have some of those conversations, just saying, oh no, I just put it there and that's it. That's all. And for those who want to get into the gritty, like the roof, for example, I thought it was necessarily a capital expenditure. And then I was like, no, you know what? It can also be considered an operational because it's a consumable.
Yeah, well, I think it's the idea of repairs and maintenance, right? Like you're bringing it can be an operating expense because you're bringing the building back to its standard. You're not improving the building. That's where it becomes a capital expense generally.
Yeah, you explain it much better than I do. Thank you. That's why you're here. And I really relate to what you said earlier, because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we forget that we're building value, we're building wealth, and a property is really, okay, it's a pile of brick, it's a roof, but at the end of the day, it's just financial statements and numbers. And I'm not advocating for massaging the numbers, but there are ways where that value could be optimized a little bit.
Yeah, listen, I think that it's super important to find an accountant that's proactive, right? You want to have somebody that wants to be involved in your business, understand your business, and also somebody that wants to take the time to sit with you and explain to you your tax situation, right? No, it's never fun to send your accountant the bookkeeping work at year end, and then 3 months later he comes back to you and tells you that you have a $50,000 tax bill to pay when you were not expecting it. So I think you should have regular conversations with your accountants, your financial professionals, to prepare for these things, because a $50K is a big hit for a lot of people, and it's going to slow down their business if they're not expecting it.
No, totally. And this is where, so in the business that you've built, you like to say that you've turbocharged people's accounting department. I'd love to know more about it. What exactly does that entail?
So the way that we turbocharge, we actually guarantee that we save our clients up to $50,000 in costs, yearly recurring costs, and that we improve the function of their accounting department. The way that we do this is by offering this new product, which is a bit different from a virtual CFO services product. We start by finding you an offshore staff to go onto your payroll. So this is really for somebody that needs a full-time accountant or controller on their payroll, right? Somebody that's a significant size. Yeah. So we start by finding you a dedicated person offshore. We go through our whole hiring process, which involves background checks, testing, multiple interviews, and other filtering tools that we use. to find you somebody that's really, really competent and an excellent accountant. And he or she will go onto your payroll at a very nominal cost, because the areas that we outsource to, we could pay a quarter of the price that it would cost for a bookkeeper here in Montreal. That salary, a quarter of that salary in the Philippines, means like their family is extremely well taken care of, and they're extremely satisfied, right?
And they'll be that much more dedicated.
They'll be extremely dedicated, in my experience. And so that's the first step, is that we find you that person to come into your team.
Okay.
Next, we set you up with all of the standard operating procedures that we use in our virtual CFO service. So, scheduling of all the tasks is done, the exact process that your accountant needs to go through for all those tasks is done. And also your involvement, like how much, when you need to actually check in on your accounting probably once a week for about an hour only. We walk you through what that process looks like too. Okay. Right. So now you have your extremely qualified person offshore, your staff. The next step is that we transition you to the best tools and systems that we use. Right?
That's very important. And also to create the link, because if you have someone offshore and the business is here, he or she needs all that information to be able to do their job.
Totally. And the standard operating procedures go hand in hand with the tool as well, right? So we take care of all of that for you. We transition you from your old accounting system, whichever one you're using, to our preferred system, which is not something that's expensive. It's very well priced and reasonable. We also have a system for receipt storage and some other systems for reporting that we use. And then we combine all of that together. We train your staff on the standard operating procedures, the new tools, and the new systems, and after that, your offshore accountant is ready to thrive. They're ready to run all of the accounting for you. They're that they're going to follow the best in class standard operating procedures to do so. And we spend about a month and a half reviewing their work, making sure that the work that they're doing is being done properly before we exit your business, and we just leave you with your extremely competent all-star offshore staff.
And but then do you keep an involvement in if there's any questions, if there is any, I was going to say, sticky point that needs to be looked at, or then are they just on their own?
Well, that's the end of that contract. You could just keep that employee, and you could keep those standard operating procedures, tools, and systems. That's for you to run. That's where the cost savings come in, right? Because you know that your accounting product is going to be supercharged. You're going to get the best in class reporting and systems in place, and you're going to be saving a lot of money by offshoring all of this work. But yes, we do offer a subsequent service where we continue to do the audits and checks to make sure that they're continuing to perform. And if we also, as a part of that service, if ever something happens and that newly hired employee has to leave for whatever reason, we take it upon ourselves to hire and train somebody else for you.
Okay. Yeah, because it could be imagined that there might be a little bit of turnover, after a while. And now, I want to focus a little bit on the training part, because we've all started a job where we go in on Monday and you get sit down, you get introduced to everyone and all that. When you work with somebody who's halfway across the world, it's not that the same interaction, and it's sometimes a bit difficult to share that company culture, the vision, and so on. So, in what ways are you able to address this to make sure that this new hire really gets a gist of not only what's the operation of the company about, but also some of the culture?
That's a very good question. So actually, we address that in the hiring stage. So part of the hiring stage and testing phase is that we actually ask the owner of the business to do a sort of personality test, and which it's a psychological test which quantifies certain key elements about the type of person you are and the type of people you like to work with. And then the staff or the candidates that we're looking to hire offshore do a test in parallel to that to make sure that you guys are a match.
It's compatible.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense from a personality type standpoint.
And also, of course, we test to make sure that their language is on point, right?
Yeah.
We need to make sure that they speak impeccable English, and that's a part of the testing as well.
Yeah, because we've all worked with people that may be in other locations in the world, and right off the bat, if you have a hard time understanding and making them repeat 3 times, I was going to say, especially in accounting, it could have dangerous consequences.
Totally. But I think it's important to note that a lot of people are hesitant to move any of their operations offshore.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's some stigma associated with offshore staff that they're not as competent, not as motivated, and not as performant. But in my experience, has not been the case at all. I think that, of course, there's a lot of people that aren't motivated or aren't performant, but you need to have a process that allows you to pick the ones that are.
Yeah.
And actually, the accountants that we've hired, a lot have Fortune 500 experience as controllers, that are managing. They have experience managing billions of dollars in revenue. As a lot of these companies put their accounting operations offshore and train these staff really, really well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's true, like over time, and it's been a trend happening for at least the last 20 years where a lot of different domains, I'm thinking of accounting, I'm thinking of IT support, I'm thinking of sometimes also development has been moved to other locations where the cost of labor is less, yet the quality of the work is just as good, if not better. So you're right. There's this huge stigma that like, oh no, if you move it elsewhere, you're going to lose control. But really those numbers can be interpreted by anyone, anywhere. To me, it doesn't really have necessarily an impact on the quality of the work as long as the proper tools are in place, the proper person is picked, and that there's still regular contact and oversight. Because otherwise it's too easy to like kind of drift aside, and then we didn't do it last week, we didn't do it the week before, and then it just kind of falls off. And that's really also on the business and on the operator to keep that regular contact.
Absolutely.
To make sure they're both aligned.
Absolutely. I think it's key to in any professional practice, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, engineer, to also have a review process, right? I think that in a review process, a lot of things are uncovered, a lot of mistakes or oversights are seen, and that's something that we also offer through our standard operating procedures. We come in and we review their work to make sure that everything is on point and that nothing was missed.
Just you said something earlier I want to go back to. You said you picked the example of like, oh, someone who's got a sixplex. Okay. What would be your advice to them in terms of setting up? Because a sixplex it doesn't justify having someone for that. Usually it's just the owner who sits down once a month, takes all the expenses where there aren't that many at this point, and then categorizes them and does his statements. What would be 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would give in terms of small things they can do to improve their setup? Even like if you have software recommendations, for example.
Well, one of the tools that we use is called Dext.
Okay.
And it's a receipt storage system that also allows you to publish the invoices into QuickBooks automatically. So it's quite good because, a lot of these receipts you misplace. Everybody does.
Tell me more. I had exactly this situation this weekend. I came back with my suit pocket full of receipts.
You use the shoebox method.
Yeah. It's more of a big envelope. Yeah. Okay. So tell me more.
Yeah, I think the shoebox method is a bit
outdated.
Yeah. So Dext is a replacement for the shoebox method, where basically you have, it's a receipt storage app where you have multiple ways of submitting receipts. So my favorite way is through the app. So you could just take a photo of the receipt after you pay for a dinner with your investors. You take a photo of the receipt and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's just uploaded into the system. Okay. Right. Another way to submit an invoice is to forward it in by email.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I do sometimes. When I think about it, I just sit down right here at the cashier. I take a picture and I email it.
Yes. But this forwards the receipt into the email, and the receipt will live in the email, will live in the system forever. and it's a secure way of storing it. You know that everything is there permanently, which is amazing. And in the case of an audit, which does happen, I think a lot of real estate investors or a lot of entrepreneurs out there don't realize that audits do happen. I think that the number one way of saving taxes is keeping your receipts. I've seen so many expenses disallowed just because
they didn't have the receipt.
We didn't have a receipt to show them.
That.
So it's super important to really have that system in place. Whether it's a shoebox, if the shoebox method works for you, then that's amazing. But I recommend upgrading and coming to terms with the future.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge efficiency gain.
Yeah.
So for some of the business, like on the development project, we're using QuickBooks. We've made a few tweaks, but it suits the purpose. And then for the rest of the portfolio, we use Proprio Expert because it's tailored to the Quebec market and so on. What kind of software? So again, going back to someone who's got a sixplex, because a lot of people listening do, or just like a small portfolio, a triplex, a sixplex, maybe 2 buildings. So for like 12 units or something. What would, if you needed to start from scratch, someone who's badly organized and tomorrow you're taking over their accounting, kind of what tools would you put in place on day one?
My go-to tools are QuickBooks as well. I love using QuickBooks. I think it's a great software, and Dext.
Okay.
Dext and QuickBooks are the two tools that I really recommend. And then after that, it's really in the standard operating procedures of how the work is getting done, right? So I also use a task management tool to keep track of everything that my team is doing, and also to keep track of all of the deadlines that my clients have, right? So I think it's really, really important to track how everything is getting done, how much time it's taking to get everything done, and also to keep an eye out on all of those deadlines. You want to be able to see those deadlines in advance, not get a call from your bookkeeper on March 15th
where is it?
Yeah. Hey, there's a DAS payment of $4,000 that needs to go out today. Like, that's not good.
And that's a really good point. Just having a calendar that you set at the beginning of the year properly with all the major dates, and sometimes if something is due, put an alert a month before. So at least you have a little bit of time to get ready for it, to work on it, instead of saying like 2 days before, oh, I need to produce this form for that date, because then it's too short, it's a rush, and it's a more difficult process.
Totally, yeah. So for all of our clients, we set them up on an email chain that updates them on all of the deadlines that they have coming up.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So when you come back on the podcast, let's say 2-3 years from now, what is the story that you'll want to share with us in terms of Mogul? What will have happened? You'll already be able to look back, because now it's been 3 months, but then it'll be 3 years. What is it that you will have accomplished?
I'm really excited about my product because I've been working on this virtual CFO service product for 5 years now. So I think the product has come a long way. We're quite strong on the product that we have to offer, and now I'm ready to scale the market.
Okay.
Right? I'm ready to bring on new customers and offer them this amazing experience for their accounting needs. And I hope in 3 years I'll have a lot more happy customers.
Okay. And as you were saying that, there's a huge market for you out there, because there's so many companies that don't want to be handling all this internally, that cannot afford to have a full-time person. It becomes a mess. And so properly structured, that offer can really, really go far, not only for you, but mostly for your clients. Because if it goes far for your clients, they'll refer you, they'll send you some of their friends, some of their other businesses, and that's the best way to grow. So that's really encouraging to see how much of an untapped market there is out there.
Yes. Yeah. I'm encouraged by delivering value to my clients. That's really what I want to be. I want to be a source of happiness. I want to turn the stress that entrepreneurs usually associate with accounting into a pleasant experience, as pleasant as it could be.
Yeah.
and also for them to, be able to make business decisions with their accounting, something that could be fruitful for them in their entrepreneurship journey, rather than just a tax compliance obligation, right? So yeah.
And the good thing in this case is that we talked a little bit about this offline. Like, it's been a build up for you to get to that point where, as you said, you've worked on this product for 5 years. You have experience in big firms and really some of the best in the world and dedicated to this. So now what you're going to be able to do over the next 5 years, everything led you to this point.
Yeah. Thanks, Axel. I'm really excited about what the future has to bring. I'm always looking to innovate. I want to bring in as much artificial intelligence as possible to the business and just really service my clients to the next level. Do
you find that your industry is an early adopter of that kind of technology? Because as you mentioned AI, I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, and we'll take a minute or two on it. That to automate some of the tasks. I mean, there's a lot of tools have been developed in the last year.
There has been, but I don't think that the accounting industry is really taking advantage of everything that there is. It's not. We try and incorporate it into as much of our files as we can. I think QuickBooks really has that on their roadmap to bring in AI as much as possible. Okay. But for the time being, all they really have is suggestions for transaction categorization, which doesn't seem very smart to me.
Yeah, that's not really enough.
No, the suggestions aren't really that great either.
No. Really? No, it's not reliable?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay,
no.
Well, they
help sometimes.
They need to perfect it.
Yes.
They have a bit of time. Yeah. Good to know. Yeah. All right. And finally, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, you could go on our website, MogulCPA.com, and book a call with me. That's it.
MogulCPA.com, and then give you a call, book a call, and then because we always say book a call, but I bet you do have a phone number over there. They can just pick up the phone right there and call you.
You can. You could reach me on my direct line, which is 514-294-3896. That's how Axel got in touch with me. I remember. Yeah. But definitely booking a call with me so that I could check out your company a little bit before and come prepared to the call is the best way. You could easily book a call on MogulCPA.com, and there's many links there to book a call with me.
Perfect. Matthew, it's been a real pleasure to have you on today. Thank you for sharing some of that knowledge, and I wish you absolute best of luck with everything that you're doing in your endeavor to place fractional accountants in as many companies as possible. Good job, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
And for all those listening, as usual, keep making some offers, research your market, and stay tuned because there's going to be part 2 coming where we're going to dig a little bit more into real estate and how you could be saving some money through his advice. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you next week. Ciao.